Hey there, everybody. Good morning. Hey, how's it going? I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my YouTube channel and for today's art live stream. Continuing work on this Superman sketch cover here. We've penciled and roughed in Doomsday and Superman. We've inked in Doomsday and Superman. Now it's time to color Doomsday and then Superman. So we're going to start with coloring Doomsday because he's in the foreground. Work our way over to Superman. We'll see how much we can get done today. Should at least get Doomsday done. Maybe we can get them both done. Not really sure, but we'll find out once we start coloring. So I'll be using Copic sketch markers, and I'll share my Copic codes as I go in case you use Copic sketch markers as well. But if you don't, that's totally okay, totally cool. So let's flip the camera around. Let's get to coloring. All right, just clip back into the rig here. Readjust the light, and we're golden. I'll try to respond to questions and comments while I color, if I can catch them as I color. So let's see. Let's just get cracking here. Oops, I see some pencil lines here I need to erase that I missed the first time. Just a little double check here before I start coloring. If you color over the pencil lines, it kind of locks them in. You kind of can't erase them out after the Copic marker has gone over them. So let's start with Doomsday's skin tone. Going to start with warm grays. Going to start with a warm gray 3, kind of a mid-range warm gray. I'll probably work towards lighter shades and maybe some darker shades as I go. So this is kind of my mid-range color I'm going to use for Doomsday's skin tone. Always keeping in mind the light source, which is pretty much from above. A little bit from the heat vision, but more so from above. Welcome everyone, so glad you're here. Welcome all you live viewers. And if you're watching this on replay, thanks for watching the replay as I leave a message to the future. See, what's up? Not much, just, you know, getting some colors going here on this sketch cover. So glad everyone's here to hang out with me today. So just leaving some open area for where the light might be hitting, and I'll be coming in with a lighter shade of warm gray as we go. Right now this is a warm gray 3 that I'm working with. I think someone asked, are there any coloring books out there with my work in it? Some of the stuff I've done for Marvel I think might have been included in a coloring book. I think there's a Guardians of the Galaxy coloring book out there that has the black and white line art to my Groot variant cover I did for GameStop, I think is the illustration that one can color. I'd heard rumor of that. I have not seen it myself, but that'd probably be the closest I could think of that I have been a part of. I haven't had much of my work in many coloring books that I am familiar with. I have not created any original art to be utilized in a coloring book. Okay, looks like this warm gray 3 is running kind of dry. I thought I had enough ink in there, and apparently I do not. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick, semi-quick refill here. You get these refill bottles. You can get about 10 to 12 marker refills. Sometimes you can use a booster pack, this booster needle to refill the marker, and then sometimes when you not able to do that, you can just gently squeeze the ink onto the broad tip and let the ink run down into the reservoir to refill. You don't want to go too fast, otherwise ink spills everywhere. This ink will stain. So you want to make sure you're in a safe place, maybe with some paper towels, maybe wearing grubby clothes. I tend not to wear clothes I don't want to get stained when I'm doing my refills, when I have to do like a full collection refill, which will take me about an hour or so when I have to refill like my whole collection of dried out markers. So I'm just kind of giving it a little drink here right now. Sorry about this, gang. Did not expect this to happen. So that should be enough to kind of get us started here. And mind you, you have to get the colored refill for the colored pen. So this marker is a warm gray 3. I got warm gray 3 ink, refill ink. You can't just use any old ink. You have to get the color that you're working with. All right, that helped juice us up here a little bit more. Hopefully we can get a little closer to the, at least get Doomsday colored up here. Ideally, I should have had that completely filled prior. Still coming out a bit streaky. Let's try the broad tip, see if I can get the bulk of what I want done. It takes the ink a little bit of time for it to roll down into the reservoir to get to the brush tip. So just to save time, we'll go chisel tip, broad tip, since it's a little closer to what has been refilled, and we can start cutting in some shapes here. Keep things trucking. We'll come in with some darker warm gray in those areas. So no sense in putting any warm gray 3 there. So just enough to kind of get that first coat going. I'll be coming in with other shades here. Probably some warm gray 2 and warm gray 4. In fact, let's go ahead and switch over to the warm gray. Let's go warm gray 4, hit some of these darker areas. Like parts of his body further away from the light. Here, like in the armpit, that's going to be further away from the light, so I can go with a darker warm gray right there. Underneath his chin. Oops, sorry, it's just hitting right under the nose and the eye there. Got under part of the fingers here. Now these aren't necessarily my shadows I'm creating here, even though they are darker areas. I will be coming in, as always, with my cool grays to create some of the more realistic shadow that I enjoy doing. Right now I'm just kind of layering in the initial colors of his skin, of warm grays. On this far side of his fingers here. Through his other hand. Have I heard of Derek Loftman? Name sounds vaguely familiar. I don't think I've I'm not quite sure if I know Derek Loftman or know who Derek Loftman is. Who's Derek Loftman? So still working this warm gray 4. Just kind of sculpting out the roundedness of his body and muscles. Put some here on this far side of his thigh. Am I doing the green or brown Doomsday? I guess I'd be doing the green. I didn't know he had a brown suit. I've only seen him in the green suit, like the classic one from like the 1990s, like the original storyline. So it'll be green suit, or kind of like a aqua teal sort of colored suit. Doomsday. Oops, sorry, this is putting a little bit more dark right there. All right, now let's come in with some warm gray 2. Start to eat up some more of this white. How many watermelons can I juggle? I'm going to say, gosh, when was the last time I was watermelon juggling? It's probably last summer. I would probably say I could juggle, on a good day, on a really good day, I could probably juggle as many as one watermelon. Yeah, one watermelon if things are in a really, if it's a really good situation. One. Do I have a pet? No, I do not. No pets. All right, so just going through the abdomen here. When is Wildguard making its comeback? My creator-owned comic. I don't know when it's going to be making its comeback. That might still be a ways away. But I do hope to do more with my Wildguard series at some point. At least release one news story I've been fiddling with. All right, should have just enough cool gray, or warm gray 2 to finish off these muscles. You can hear that squeaking there. It's running out of juice too. These warm grays were not as refilled as I had thought they were. Or I thought I had enough ink in them to get me through this illustration. Of course, this is a lot of warm gray to be dropping onto a board here. Let's come up with some warm gray 1 to kind of help blend all these colors, all these warm grays together, kind of punch up the saturation. Any tips on becoming an artist? Well, it depends on what you mean by that. I would say if you want to draw, go for it. Just draw. And you are an artist. If you want to be a professional artist, well, it depends on what type of art you want to do. Because there's all sorts of different careers one can have in art. So you want to make sure you're training for the job you want. Depends on what type of art you like to do. You want to be a comic book artist? A very noble profession. You know, what you need to learn how to do is, 1, study your anatomy, study figure work. That's going to be critical. Study your figure work, your anatomy, your positions, like how to position a character, how to create different poses, especially from your imagination is going to be very important. Learning perspective and how to draw detailed backgrounds, learning design, and how to draw interior pages, the panel-to-panel comics book storytelling, because we're visual storytellers just as much as we draw cool shots of the characters. We also have to be able to tell a story visually. That is critical. So there's a lot to learn. Look into the book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. That'll help teach you the foundations of comic book art. So I'm going to come in with some, actually I was going to use cool gray, but I'm going to switch to neutral gray. I'm going to come in with some neutral gray too for the bone protrusions. Different shade of gray to separate from his skin. Was it more difficult to learn anatomy or backgrounds for breaking into comics? They were both a challenge. I would say they were both difficult to learn. I'd probably say for many of us, backgrounds are a little bit more difficult to learn because it's kind of easy to have fun drawing the characters. Like that's oftentimes more fun. So that's the part we focus on more. So we become more adept at drawing the characters first. But then when we realize, okay, my backgrounds need a lot of work so that I can work in comics professionally, then you have to start putting your attention to that, to backgrounds and storytelling, as well as your anatomy and figure work. So oftentimes backgrounds can be a big challenge because sometimes starting off, it's not the most fun thing to draw. Like a lot of people say, I'd prefer to draw the characters rather than the backgrounds, which is totally understandable. I was there as a youth. But when you just start to learn the love of drawing the backgrounds, then that can kind of change your perception, and you can find the love. You know, you can, because I see the backgrounds as part of telling the story. But I think both are difficult to learn. I think anything to learn is difficult because we don't know it. That's why we have to learn it. So it's finding the fun in the challenge, I think, which can be very crucial and beneficial. Use the same neutral gray in his jagged fingernails. Do I plan on coloring my comics anytime soon? The kind of the Wild Guard short story I'm kind of noodling on, I'm coloring that. But as far as doing my work with Marvel Comics, no plans on coloring my comics. I work with an incredible colorist, Rochelle Rosenberg. She is a superstar, mega talented color artist, a dear friend, and just a gem of a person. And I love working with her. And so I want to continue to work with her on as many projects as we are able to. So no plans on coloring my own Marvel comics at this time. Not when I got a superstar like Rochelle Rosenberg to team up with. I'm going to bring some of this cool gray, or warm gray 1 into the fingernails just so they look a little different than his bones. So it kind of reflects the skin underneath. So it's kind of a blending of those grays. Let's see. This is kind of like almost like a silvery color. We're going to go with kind of a neutral gray type of silver. So we'll start with some neutral gray 3. Usually I use cool gray, but in this sense I want kind of a dirtier silver, if that even makes sense. Grab some, go back in the slot there, BG9 or BG000. Color over those neutral grays. Starts to kind of give it that silvery sort of texture. I'm gonna grab some neutral 1 to go over that ridge there. And we just see a little bit of his trunks here, so we'll just work in some shades of greenish and teal, blue-green type colors, starting with some YG45, I should say. So we got some spots where the tape is covering. How to make paper not dirty because of pencil marks. Well, I would say my first question would be, what type of pencil are you using? Like I use an HB, and that's a kind of halfway between the soft and the hard leads. If you go more with a B, like a 2B, that's a softer lead, 4B, 6B. 6B is very, very soft. And the softer it is, the more smudgy it is. And the more smudgy it is, the more your paper will dirty. And then if you're bearing down real hard, then it's going to make the paper dirtier as well. So it's developing a light touch with going to come in with some BG34 here. For his trunks here, to give him kind of that tealish color. Have I ever met Joe Mad? I don't think I ever have. Been a big fan of his work for a lot of years, but I've never met him. Yeah, he's a fantastic artist. I remember when I first discovered his work on the Excalibur fill-in issues he did before he got his first Deadpool miniseries. I was like an instant fan. Did I say there's going to be some blood in this art? Yeah, there'll probably be some blood here because of the throwdown here, but that'll be a detail that I'll add later on. Have you ever met J. Scott Campbell? Many times, yes. Many times. Big fan of his art as well. I remember when he came on the scene at Wildstorm. Definitely a fantastic artist and someone I consider a friend. So some cool gray 4. Going to start putting in some more realistic shadows here. Have you ever met Abraham Lincoln? I haven't. I have not met Abraham Lincoln. At least like the one that used to be a president. I haven't met him. Apparently my time travel device is in the shop, and I've never been able to make it back to the 1800s to meet Abraham Lincoln. Does Doomsday bite his nails? He shouldn't. With those jagged teeth there. Of course, then again, you know, he's made of some pretty stern stuff. So, I don't know. I don't think Doomsday would bite his nails. I don't even think that's on his radar as a thing to do. I think his nails are jacked because of, well, he's a roughhouser. Let's just put it like that. Have you ever met Bendis? I have, yes. I think just once, though, at San Diego Comic-Con long ago, at a Hero Initiative event, charity event for the Hero Initiative. But that's it. Nice guy. Nice guy. He was very pleasant to talk to. But I've met a lot of people in the industry, in the comic book industry. How old was I when I started to draw? I say I was 3 years old when I started to draw, but decided to pursue it as a career when I was age 14. What do I think of Leonardo da Vinci and Titanic? Okay, gang, confession time here in regards to the movie Titanic. That movie's been around for what, over 20 years? A big box office hit, one of the biggest box office successes. Beloved movie, seen by millions and millions. I am not one of them. I have never seen the movie Titanic. Can you believe that? Never once seen the movie Titanic. I mean, I'm familiar with it. I know it exists. I know some of the catchphrases like King of the World and all that stuff, but never have ever seen it. All right, so I was coming in with some cool gray 2 here. So I'm not alone here in not seeing Titanic. A lot of other people haven't seen it. Right on. Just going to put some of this cool gray 2 through his hair back here. I see a lot of questions coming through. I'm sorry I can't see or respond to all of them, but I do appreciate you posting. So sorry I can't catch them all. Oh no, spoiler alert, the boat doesn't make it. Why did I see that post? Of all the posts I've missed, why did I see the spoiler to Titanic? So now I'm bringing in some BG90 to add a little color, some kind of this greenish gray to his hair. Just to kind of give it a nice creepy colorization. There we go. And let's see. Let's come in with some red here for his eyeball. Gonna start with some R27. And a little R24. Leaving a little white highlight in the center there. Where can you present your portfolio to work professional as a comic book artist? Comic book conventions. Go to comic book conventions, especially ones that have publishers exhibiting at them, like New York, San Diego, Chicago, C2E2, Emerald City in Seattle, little R56 there. Showing your portfolio at a comic book convention can be very, very beneficial because you get that face-to-face meeting. A little cool gray 3 now here for a little more shadow. Should go power this down to a cool gray 2. So we kind of have this nice dirty gray for Doomsday. Who's my favorite Teen Titan? Ah, man. A lot of great Titans. I'd probably say, depends on which era Teen Titans too, but I would say if we go to probably one of my favorite eras I read growing up, the Marv Wolfman, George Perez Teen Titans, which was my first Teen Titans as a kid. I would say Wally West Kid Flash is my favorite Teen Titan. But there are so many great characters in that book on that team. Do the Copic markers last long? Depends on how much marker you got to throw down on the illustration. Like I threw down a lot of gray here, so it wears them out pretty quick. That's why I have the refill bottles, so I can refill my Copics as needed. And after this illustration, my grays are going to need a lot of refilling. Back with a little more cool gray 2. So, all right, so that kind of gets me started here on Doomsday. We're going to work on the heat vision effect here, and maybe we can move right into Superman. I might trick Doomsday out more as we go, but let's work on this heat vision. So I'm going to take it from red to orange. So I'm going to start with the R27. Going to use my triangle here. Oh, seeing some more spots I need to erase. So I'm going to just fade from a shade of red to shades of orange. To kind of get that nice heat vision sort of vibe. Now let's do some R24. Then we have where it kind of sparks against Doomsday's hide. Let's see, now I'm going to move to some YR04, more of an orange color. Just take that all the way up towards his face. Gonna color over this red with this orange to give it a real nice fiery sort of vibe. Okay, so that's kind of got his heat vision there going. All right, so now on to Superman here. Let's start with his skin tones. So I'm starting with the E01. Going to put this darker shade of his skin tone on the opposite side of his face. Underneath his chin. And we have his shirt, part of his shirt torn off there. So we're going to see some more exposed skin here on his shoulder. Have his costume, his sleeves torn away from his wrists from all the punching. We have some parts here on his pants. We have exposed skin. His knee, remember we got that boo-boo right there on his knee. Super boo-boo. All right, now we're going to power that down to an E000, or E00, I should say, not triple. Not going triple yet, just double. All right, so that takes care of the initial skin tones. Let's come in with a little bit of pink for his nose. Some R20. A little bit on the chin, a little bit on the cheeks, just a little bit. A little bit on the knuckles, because they've had a workout. A little bit on the knee here. I like putting it at the joints oftentimes, put some pink at the joints. A little bit there on the Adam's apple. Some R2, or I'm saying R11 is up next. A little here through the shoulders. All right. Favorite sport? Let's see. For me, I don't really play any sports, but I do like watching sports, and the NFL, the National Football League here in the US, is one of my favorite sports to watch. I'm from Dallas, Texas, so I root for the Dallas Cowboys. A little B97. Gonna start to work in his hair color here. Some shades of blue and then some shades of gray. So I'm working darker colors here closer to the root. Now here where we have the black, I'm going to work from dark blue to lighter blue and then go over that with grays so it doesn't look like blue hair. Does Copic send me free Copics? No, they don't. Years ago, when I was connected with the Copic social media person in charge of Copic social media, and I did some tutorials for Copic in exchange for product. So that's kind of helped me build up my collection. Now some B01. But that person has since moved on. So I have, haven't done any Copic tutorials in some time. So, but it really did, in the early days, help me build up my collection pretty easily. And now I maintain it with my own funds. Now I'm going to come over this gray, or this blue with some gray. I'm going to start with some neutral gray 4. So it kind of has this nice bluish gray sort of look. I'm going to tamp that down to a neutral gray 2. Just like that. I'm going to put some red in his eyes for his eyeballs, for his pupil or irises here, because he is using his heat vision. So his red eyes are all red like that. So let's see. So now we can start to work on Superman's costume. And so we'll start with the yellow portions. I'm going to start with some R21. I'm going to start to sculpt in kind of the darker parts of the yellow. Don't have a lot of yellow, so it's easier to kind of just get this part worked in first. And then let's see, some Y13 next. And then some Y00. All right, now let's hit the blues of this uniform. So I'm going to start with some B05 here initially. Kind of going to work from dark to light. Which characters do you like to draw the most, and who is your favorite superhero, Marvel and DC? I love so many different characters. I would say characters I love to draw: Spider-Man characters, X-Men characters, my Young Justice kids from my time on that series. Love doing that book. Let's see, my favorite Marvel characters: X-Men characters, Spider-Man characters, specifically Spider-Man, Kitty Pryde over at Marvel, over at DC. Some of my favorite characters are the Justice League International characters. So Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, Martian Manhunter, and of course my Young Justice kids. So Impulse, Tim Drake, Connell, Cassie Sandsmark, etc. What about Stargirl? Absolutely Stargirl. Yes, love Stargirl. In fact, I need to watch her series just debuted here on the CW. I think they're, what, 2, maybe 3 episodes in? So I need to go on the CW app and watch that. I'm very excited for Stargirl. Love the character. Jeff Johns is a friend of mine. We both broke into DC Comics around the same time. So very excited for him and for that character. So I'm really looking forward to it. It looks really cool, and I really, really hope to crack into that show and check it out here. I'm very excited that it's debuting here now and finally here for us to see. I just need to find time to sit down and watch it. Hopefully I can do that here in the next week or two. Heck, week or two. Hopefully in the next few days is what I mean. Week or two. What am I thinking? Don't want to wait that long. Okay, so I've almost got kind of my dark shade of blue rocking here, and going to move to lighter shades of blue. So now switch from a B5 to a B4. I'm going to have these bits of his cloth tearing away, kind of floating about. Oops, sorry, hung up on my mic cord. See, someone asked, what were the biggest differences between when I broke in at Extreme and when I broke in at DC Comics? When I worked at Extreme, I was working in studio. I moved to California to work in Rob Liefeld's studio there in the 1990s, which was a lot of fun to be in studio, and it's a bunch of young artists, and we're all getting to, you know, make comics together. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. And it's just really exciting time to be a new young artist in comics in those early days of Image Comics. When I moved on from working for Rob Liefeld and started working for DC, DC was in New York City, but they don't really have, the artists who work for Marvel and DC don't really work in the offices. Everyone works in their own studios across the world, depending on where the artist lives. I live here in the US, but I live in California because I stayed in California after I was done working with Rob Liefeld. So, so that was a big difference, you know, working with my editors who, you know, is all about phone calls, and now it's like all about emails. You know, same with working for Marvel. They're in New York City. I'm here in California. So a lot of it is emails and phone calls, and then we see each other at conventions. So that would probably be the biggest difference, was working in studio versus working remotely. So now some B02. You know, having your bosses, you know, on the other side of the country really kind of forces a person into developing their own self-discipline. You don't have your boss over your shoulder. You know, you have to know how to get stuff done and done in time to, you know, be responsible for the project you're working on and the people you're working with. But when you're working in studio, it's like, so when I was working for Rob, like my editors were right there, you know, they were down the hall. So if we needed to talk about something, it was tons of face-to-face interaction, which was cool. Especially when I was a brand new guy, you know, just breaking into the industry. So once I get all the basic colors here down for Superman, and we start working on the shadows, we're also going to really just gritty him up. You know, scuff him up, maybe some blood, some bruises. Favorite comedian. Someone asked favorite comedian. I have a lot of favorite comedians. I'd probably say Jim Gaffigan's way up there, as well as Brian Regan. I'd probably say those are two of my favorites. I've seen Brian Regan perform live a number of times, and just a very, very funny guy. Let's see, how many hours would it take you on an average to pencil and ink one comic book page? It takes me about one full day. Averages out to be one full day to pencil and ink a comic book page. Not that I pencil and ink in the same day. I'll do all the pencils first, then come back and do the inks. So I work at different processes and different speeds for pencils versus inks, but it averages out to about a page a day. So I pencil 2 to 3 pages a day, and then I ink 1.5 to 2 pages a day. So it averages out. So that's anywhere from an 8 to 14 hour workday, depending on how difficult the page is. All right, so now we can move into the reds. So I'm going to start with some darker reds here initially, a little bit of R5-6. Just to kind of hit some of the darker parts. Not going to use a lot of this, just a little bit. Just like to get this kind of base dark shade in first. Oops, I see a spot I missed with the blue. It's one part of his collarbone, shoulder area. Do I prefer to draw with music or Netflix on in the background, or no? I do like to work with music on. I do like to work with TV or movies running. Probably more TV shows or movies. I listen to The Office a lot, the sitcom The Office when I draw. Mystery Science Theater and Riff Tracks episodes I listen to a lot. Any show that I've seen a lot of, or I've watched many times, so I don't actually have to look at the show. So those are some of the shows I like to watch. Shows like Monster Quest is fun. So those are the types of shows I like to listen to while I draw. And then music, I like to listen to early 90s alternative rock is one of my favorites. And then 80s hits as well. Now some R27. You must watch The Office. You've heard a lot of good things about it. Oh my gosh, yes, check it out. Do check it out. See, my favorite Mystery Science Theater episode? It depends on the season, depends on the host. Like for the Joel years, I'd probably say Attack of the Eye Creatures is one of my favorites. For the Mike Nelson years, I would probably say Hobgoblins is one of my favorites. Space Mutiny, another favorite from the Sci-Fi Channel days. And then for the Jonah Netflix years, or 2 seasons that they got to do, I'd probably say Avalanche, Cry Wilderness, and Lords of the Deep would be some of my favorites from Jonah Heston. Have I caught the British Office? Absolutely, yes. After I became a fan of the American version, I sought out the UK version on DVD so I could see kind of where the US version was inspired from. And yeah, I enjoy the UK version as well. The UK version is funny. I think it's even more cringy and uncomfortable than the US version, which I didn't know was possible. I think I cringed far more with David Brent than I ever had with Michael Scott, except for that dinner party. The Michael Scott dinner party in season 5 or 6. Oh my gosh, that was probably one of the most cringy episodes of the US version. But I felt the UK version, pound for pound, had more cringe factor to it. But what I really enjoy is that both versions of The Office, UK and US, exist in the same reality. Because David Brent applied to be manager of the US version, US Office, Dunder Mifflin, at the end of season 7. So that and he actually, Michael Scott even had met David Brent, who was there in the US for some reason, was at the Scranton Office Park. So twice David Brent has shown up on the US Office, thus making the 2 series exist in the same world, which I think is pretty cool. Now for some R24. Gotta be very careful around the S here, especially with these thin lines. Favorite Looney Tune? Daffy Duck, for sure. Daffy Duck is my favorite of the Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny is pretty awesome too, but I don't know, it's just something about Daffy Duck. All right. I see a couple of spots I forgot to fill in blue here on his torn shirt right there. Going to come in with the skin tone, the E01, just kind of add a second layer to some certain parts just to kind of round them out a little bit more. Bring in a little bit of vibrancy. A little more saturation, I guess I should say. Okay. All right, all right, all right. Let's see. Now we should probably work on some of the rubble here. So we're going to use some different shades of some brown. So we're going to start with some E57. Going to work some E57 over here. I'll be careful in the choices I make in the browns and the grays, especially considering there's so much gray on Doomsday there. Now some E55. Okay, I'm going to switch over. I'm just going to use several different shades of brown here right now. Just kind of let them mix and merge and mingle. This to the E31. So as you can see, his knuckle bone spikes start to stand out. Let's see, what other shades? Let's try a little E84. So I just really want all these different browns, and then we'll come in with some grays here to kind of just clump around and create a very, very patchwork sort of gray background. Just all the different kind of browns, and once I start working the grays in here, giving it some, hopefully, depth. So I'm going to shoot for. Any tips when drawing a fight scene? Well, I'm working on a fight scene right here. If you missed parts 1, 2, and 3, where I did the pencils, the sketch, and the inks, I kind of talk how I break it down, like putting character here in the foreground. We have Superman here in the middle ground, so we have some depth. I consider the pose, the action, and where do I pause it and then illustrate it. Like I pause it in my mind, in my mind's eye, and then illustrate based on kind of what I'm seeing in my mind's eye. So let's bring in a little BG90. Going to start to move towards a gray. This is kind of a greenish gray. In fact, I should pull this shot back a little bit. So you can see a little more clearly as I render the background, because I know sometimes I'm ending up off camera. Little BG93. Start layering in some of this. This is a darker greenish gray. Please do keep in mind, if you're watching live and you're posting comments, that this is an all ages channel, so please keep your comments appropriate. That's all I'd ask, please. Thank you. So you come in, let's start working in some cool grays here. My second favorite Superman costume. Let's see. Wow. I guess maybe Superman Blue? Because it was so different. It was so weird when it came out in the 90s. So yeah, I'm going to say Superman Blue. Come in with a little cool gray too now. So now I'm going to start coloring over these browns with some shades of gray. Starts to kind of gritty them up a little bit. Come in with some warm gray. We'll start with some warm gray 5. So this is the kind of giving that attention to the background details. Considering all the different chunks of rock and rubble here, can help me create a background that gives Superman and Doomsday a cool environment to live in, to fight in. Gonna bring some. We're not going to do a lot of heavy coloring in the background here because we don't want it to overpower the boys here. So we're just going to kind of do a light fade. So I'm working some warm gray up, probably some different shades of warm, cool, and neutral gray, just to kind of give it a sense of kind of rubbly smoke and yeah, debris. So it's just a very subtle background character because I don't want to overpower. And let's bring in some neutral 1. Okay, let's see, I want to render out these rebar, and then I need to add the shadows, and we're going to gritty this up with my trick that I do for when I color blood onto a character. So using a neutral gray 4 here for the rebar. Little cool gray, or neutral gray 3 there. Okay, let's add some shadow here to Superman. Push back in here so you can see a little more detail on Superman. So I'm going to come in with some cool gray 1. Going to put this around his eyes. Heavy shadow around his eyes so his eyes really kind of look a little more lit up. So I start to add in these shadows, gives it more of that realistic sort of vibe, not so bright and colorful. So using the cool gray 1 for the skin tone. Using the same cool gray 1 through the S here. Why not a shade of brown for the shadows? It's a shade of brown is possible if that's the way you want to go. Feel free, yeah, go for it. Me personally, I prefer cool gray. I just like the way it looks. I like how it kind of how it kind of mixes with the colors. But yeah, if you like brown, more power to you, please. I might experiment with that sometime. A little cool gray 2, make it a little darker around his eyes. A little underneath the hair there. Let's see, let's bring in some cool gray 4 for the blues and the reds. So keeping in mind the shape of the muscle and how that would render out the pecs. Heavier shadow underneath the cape there. Looks like this cool gray 4 is going to need a refill as well. Probably have to refill all the grays after today's live stream. But it looks like we're going to get all the colors done here in one stream, so that's pretty cool. Let's see, we're going to take this to a cool gray 5. Hit some of those further darker areas. Parts further away from the light for a little heavier shadow. See, I think someone asked about how they can break into comics internationally. Keep up with whatever publisher you can work with. Check up on their convention schedule. I know many of the publishers, the major publishers, send their editors out to international conventions to find new talent across the world. And that's going to be a really fantastic opportunity to meet with an editor, hopefully show your portfolio, hopefully get a critique, and hopefully make a contact that might one day lead to scoring a job. But until then, until that time, work on the craft. Work on how to do storytelling. Work on how to do your panel-to-panel comic book pages. That's what I mean by storytelling. Be able to draw comic book pages, because that is what a comic book is really, in many ways, I'm going to say is kind of what it's all about. So that's something you're going to want to kind of have those skills ready so that when you meet an editor, you know, you're hopefully a little further along in the game, and hopefully you'll be able to score a job sooner rather than later. Doesn't mean you're going to get a job the first time, but if you can hopefully catch that editor's attention, it could lead to an opportunity later on. I live here in the States, but I would see the comic book editors when they came out to the Dallas comic book conventions back in the late 80s and early 90s. And I would see this one editor over and over again, and she kind of saw my work evolve over time. So that was kind of a luxury being here in the States. But if you're international, keep working at it. I mean, get your skills down and keep posting your stuff online as well, because you never know if an editor might discover your work here on your social media and reach out to you to maybe, hopefully, draw a project for them. You just never know. I'm going to bring in a little cool gray 3 here into the S on his cape. And then I'm going to bring this E01 back. We just want to bring back the vibrancy in some parts of the skin. Actually, I'm going to bring in the E00. Just give it a little punch up. Kind of blend the skin tones and grays together a little more smoothly, a little more saturation. Would I ever draw a Gambit series? I would definitely consider that. I really do enjoy Gambit. Been a fan of Gambits for some time. All right, now we're going to add some blood here to Superman. So I'm starting with the I keep wanting to say E, R56. Going to add some from his nose down to his chin, corner of his mouth to chin. A little bit here on his body. We're not going to make him overly bloody, but going to have some here on his knuckles. Probably add some bruises as well with some purples here real soon. Some on his costume as well as his skin. Probably add some of this to Doomsday as well a little bit. So the nice thing about the brush tip is you can kind of let it dance across the page to create these kind of little trails. What is more exciting, sketching it out, inking it, or coloring it? You know, it's all fun for me. Each one has its own merits. You know, it's like it's fun to kind of sketch it out and start to see the ideas come to life. It's fun to start to bring those lines into reality with the inks and kind of create the line weights and shapes. And then it's fun to bring in the colors because that's a whole new dimension and element to the illustration. So so I really enjoy it all for the entirety of the journey that it is. Okay, now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to remember in those old classic Superman versus Doomsday comics, Superman had some big bruises on his face. I'm going to come in with some V01, kind of bruise him up as well. So he's not just bloody, he's bruised too. going to do the same as Doomsday. I'm going to take some light neutral gray. We're going to try neutral 1, kind of add to those bruises. Okay, and let's see. Gonna add a little bit of orange here to the very base of the background here, to let it kind of fade up to white through the grays. Just to give it a little more color inside of here. So it's the YR000 if I didn't call out that code. Okay, let's see, is there any other spot that I want to hit with any color here? Maybe a little cool or warm gray, a little more warm gray. So I'm going to bring in a little more vibrancy to the red. So a little R27 to some of these red spots. So everywhere where I put the R56, going to hit a little R27. Just for a little more vibrancy. A few little splatters here and there. Just a little bit more here on soups. Okay, let's see. Just want to add a little bit more to the background. Gonna come in with some warm 0. Let's see, in some of my videos you glimpse the Marvel 25th anniversary poster. Is that the one drawn by Carrie Gamble? Absolutely it is, yes. I've had that poster since I was 15 years old. And so I got it back in 1986. So coming in with some warm gray 0. Yes, warm gray 0. Just to kind of punch up a little more color in the background. It was a little too white. I don't want a lot of big, heavy, bright colors or dark colors in the background. But I do want a little more color than what I had. So it's easier to come back in and add some more to that. Especially down here at the base. All right, I think I might almost be done here. I just want to double check everything, kind of go over my work, see if there's any other part that I wanted to add some stuff. You know what? We're going to just put a few drops of blood on the back of his cape here. Just because you never know. That cape's always flipping and floating and flitting about. It probably got some blood splatter on it. Dot a little more here on the S. We'll put a little here on the belt buckle. Even dropping a few bits of blood onto the rubble. Maybe a little bit here on his shoulder spikes or bones. So right there. Okay. Gonna come in with just another layer of the E00. Just for a little more, again, a little more saturation. I think we can call this one completed. So today's the 27th, isn't that right? No, 28th. It's the 28th. So we'll put in the day and month that this was completed. And there we go. So yeah, this was this about an hour and a half to do all these colors. Not too shabby. There is the finished piece. A lot of fun to color. A lot of fun to draw and color. So let's flip the camera around and we can wrap up today's live stream. Oh, there we go. There's that Marvel 25th anniversary poster that one comment was about. All right. Hey, gang. Okay. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. Thanks so much for being here. I'll get a shot of this up on my social media, so stay tuned for that. You can follow me on all my social media. The links are in the video description below, so feel free to click on those. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for posting. Sorry I couldn't see everyone's post. So much of my focus goes into the art, but thank you for being with me. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again soon. We'll see if I'll be able to join you for schedule a live stream for tomorrow. Stay tuned to my channel. If I'm able to, I will have a live stream scheduled. We'll see what my work schedule's like. So, so hopefully hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. If not, hopefully I'll see you on Monday. So again, thanks so much, and I will see you again soon. Take care. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing. Keep having fun. All the best, everybody.